Welcome. I call this meeting to order, and welcome to the Tuesday, December 12th, City Council 4 o'clock informational. First item on our agenda is City Council open discussion. Do we have any items to discuss? Okay, seeing none, then we're going to move right on into our first presentation, which is Golf Course Management Contract, and Director of Parks and Recreation, Don Gurney, is going to start us off.
Well, good afternoon.
Welcome, Director.
Council members, appreciate the opportunity to present our Golf Facilities Management Agreement for Elmwood, Keene Park, and Prairie Green. This is going to be a tag team effort between myself, Tracy Turback, our Director of Finance, Tom Everett, the President of Landscapes Management Company, as well as Greg Greenfield, who is outside legal counsel that's helping us with this project. So to start off with, the last little background in the history on this golf course management contract is that it was 23 years ago when we last had a change in golf course management. Prior to Dakota Golf Management being involved, it was a combination effort between city staff maintaining the courses and Terry Comstock being involved as well. And the last request for proposals was in 1998. And over the years, internal audit has recommended that we go out for a request for proposal process to test the market to make sure that the city is getting the very best in golf course management services. We also, as many of you know, did secure the services of the National Golf Foundation to assist us with an operational assessment of the golf course operations, as well as provide strategic guidance on the development of the RFP process and provided feedback along the way. And as a reminder, the current contract with Dakota Golf expires at the end of this year. So on to the selection process. The RFP was issued back in July. We received written proposals from 5 firms. We did identify a 6-member selection committee to review the proposals. They considered experience, business operations and plans, the fee proposal, the capital plan, references, and their financial capability and their reporting and accountability in their proposals. Since that time, we have issued a notice of intent to award based on those interviews with those various firms that did submit, and we did award that to Landscapes Unlimited back on October of 2017, and contract negotiations have occurred since that time. Earlier this afternoon, we were in front of the Parks and Recreation Board. They did unanimously recommend approval of the management contract with Landscapes Management Company. We are obviously before you right now today at the Informational to share that same presentation and answer your questions. And then this is scheduled for City Council resolution and approval on December 19th, 2017, with the new contract commencement of January 1 of 2018. As it relates to Landscapes Unlimited and their golf management arm of their organization, they're very familiar with our city courses, constructed Prairie Green back in 1991, and they also completed the about 3.5-year renovation of Elmwood Golf Course. And we really feel like they provide a complete package of golf course management services. And here today with us is the president of Landscapes Management Company, who will tell you a little bit more about the services that they provide, and that is Tom Everett with Landscapes Management Company. Tom?
Welcome, Tom. Nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members of the council. Don, thank you. I'd just like to say that we are very pleased and greatly appreciate the opportunity to have been recommended for this opportunity going forward. My objective here today is to tell you a little bit about our company and a little bit about what drove our proposal here and why we were interested. Landscapes Unlimited was founded by a gentleman by the name of Bill Kubley. Bill was a landscape architect graduate from the University of Wisconsin. Bill moved to Lincoln, Nebraska in the early 70s to work for a golf design builder and after about 4 years of doing so, decided that he could do that himself. So he endeavored to set out on his own, and that was 40 years ago. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary last fall. His first project was a irrigating a 9-hole golf course right here, not right here, but nearby in Mitchell, South Dakota. A little more than 10 years into the evolution of our company, we had the opportunity to get involved with in the ownership of the Amana Colonies golf course in Amana, Iowa. So therefore, our management business, I'm sorry. Thank you. Our management company was born about 30 years ago. And today, we are managing 46 golf courses in 18 states, 2 in China, and 1 in Canada. The evolution of our company, I think, is important to note that in the early times of our management and operations business, we were owning and operating golf courses for our own account. We feel like that prepares us very well to be able to do that for our clients, in that we will be managing the city's money and allocating those resources as if they were our own. Over the course of that time, we've assembled a team of about 20 of the finest industry professionals to deliver those services. We have two core businesses, and the first one is one that the Parks Department and some of you may be familiar with, and that's our construction activity. That includes all phases of golf construction, and we also, out of need, diversified into sports field recreation in the early 2000s as well. We've completed about 1,800 projects over the course of that 40 years, and we just actually awarded our 1,800th job last week to Kinloch Golf Club in Mannequin-Sabot, Virginia. On the other side, our management company, we have a very varied delivery of services. We are a true solutions company and will listen to our clients and identify what solution fits best for them. So we will offer full management solutions from everything to do with operations from opening to closing and everything in between. We will also tailor our services under our Landscape Select service delivery, whereby we will provide a la carte services or engage just individual aspects of our resources as well. And then we also provide short-term consulting assignments. I would just like to note that there's no other company in the world that can self-perform under one roof the level of services that our company can. One of the things that we liked most about this opportunity was the fact that the city of Sioux Falls was already a client of ours, and we feel like it works very well when we're able to take a client all the way through all facets of our business. This, we've provided a list of some of our notable construction clients. And this list of clubs and golf courses is really the resume under which I was attracted to the company 20 years ago. I came to the company 20 years ago, and it was their reputation, it was Landscape's reputation for doing quality work and work with integrity that brought me to the company. And I wanted to take and build upon that resume that had been developed. I felt like the core values that a company that would be selected by some of the major championship venues here were something that I wanted to be a part of. Next slide depicts kind of where we are located on a map. It shows all 18 states. Victoria, British Columbia, we're involved with the Bear Mountain Inn and Resort, a 36-hole Jack Nicklaus private club in Victoria, British Columbia. In the bottom right, we have 2 properties in China, one on Hainan Island called Shankin Bay, recently recognized as number 37 in the world. and also Lanhai International Golf Resort in Shanghai, China as well. You'll note that we're nationwide, from California in the west to Maryland in the east and North Dakota in Texas, pretty well canvassing the country. You'll note the graphic there. We are listed as the number 14 largest golf management company in the world and number 10 in the United States. We have a diverse portfolio, everything from affordable daily fee operations to very high-end exclusive private clubs and everything in between. You'll also note that we have some regional offices, one in Phoenix, one in Fort Collins, Colorado, Indianapolis, Indiana, and Baltimore, Maryland. It's a pretty comprehensive list of the suite of services that we offer and that the city will be benefiting from and receiving. Just a few of them to note, our marketing experience. I feel like we have, as I mentioned before, some of the finest industry professionals in their respective areas of discipline. Ross Liggett is one of the brightest young minds in utilizing technology in the golf industry. Our ongoing training and development programs. We have a customer service training program that we're very proud of and is very personal to me. I really felt like when the industry got as competitive as it is a number of years ago, that was one thing that we could do that didn't cost our properties one extra dollar, was to provide outstanding and engaging customer service. It was built around the fish philosophy pioneered at Pike Place Fish Market in Seattle. And the four key tenets are play, be there, choose your attitude, and make their day. And that's really what the four key elements that we built our service training program around. That service training program starts with tools that our managers receive to help identify whether or not a candidate is somebody that is going to be apt to want to provide outstanding service. Once a candidate is identified, we take them through our fish orientation, which includes watching the 17-minute fish video and taking a quiz, and it's meant to be interactive and fun, and it's not a serious quiz. It's meant to engage the staff. And we keep the fish program alive by distributing bi-weekly service bulletins to every one of our staff members. It was something that was very important to me, that it wasn't just lip service that we have a service training program, but it was something that we have carried out bi-weekly for about the last 10 years. Something that we're very proud of and we feel like makes a difference. That's something that we'd really like to bring to the City of Sioux Falls properties. We have a very professional accounting department that will deliver comprehensive financial reports to the city. We're very transparent. Everything that can be included will be included, and I think the presentation of our financial statements is some of the best in the industry. Our services typically begin with developing a budget and a business plan. It's one thing to develop a budget that says we're going to make X amount of dollars in profit. It's a whole nother thing that we feel that we're delivering our clients a plan, very specifically identifying how we're going to achieve those results. That's the first thing. That's job number one when we have the opportunity to begin. Our general manager support and training on an annual basis. Every year we bring all of our general managers in from across the country for 3 days of education and team building. We do that with our golf course superintendents and our sales professionals as well. I think just the one key element that I'd like to mention here is that under this service delivery, the city really is positioned going forward to be in total control of your assets going forward, as opposed to something under a lease structure. When we considered this opportunity, we really looked at, can we make a difference? And I believe that, I don't know that there's a lot of opportunity. We didn't forecast to achieve a lot of opportunity saving expenses. This is a top-line driven opportunity. We're going to utilize our marketing department and our technology stack to implement our culture of sales. No longer, gone are the days of golf operations being in a position to open the door and answer the phone. We have to go out and get the business. And that's what those are the best practices that we have developed over the course of the last 30 years. We feel like it's important to deliver an experience, not just take a green fee, but deliver an experience, and that includes everything from how they're greeted when they walk up to how they're thanked when they leave, and the food and beverage opportunities to engage with them before and after and during their round, as well as offering very resourceful golf course conditions. One of the things I'm real passionate about with our clients is that while we will be receiving a management fee, the city will be benefiting from the value of the purchasing network that we have established. We have about 40 vendor partners that extend us preferential pricing that we pass on all rebates and all pricing to our clients. And that offsets a really good chunk of the management fee that you will be paying us. When we proposed on this opportunity, it made really good sense to us to leverage the current team that was on the ground that had developed the relationships with the golfers over the course of the last 20 plus years, to leverage that experience, that historical knowledge, and subsidize it with all of our resources. We felt like that was one way to really bridge the gap between at least the previous structure and what we're proposing today. That market manager will report to our regional manager, Chris Jacobson, and Chris has made a number of site visits already. So we have to, certainly Tom and his team, Dakota Golf Management and their team, have operated the courses very professionally over the course of the last 20 plus years. But we really felt like that was our opportunity to come in and take that historical knowledge and subsidize it with the resources, the horsepower that we offer. We thought that was the best of both worlds. We're going to bring every aspect of our resources, our Director of Agronomy, Steve Merkel, our National Food and Beverage Director, Mark Young, Bryce Judas, our Vice President of Accounting and Finance, our Human Resources Department, Ross Liggett, our Director of Marketing and Revenue Management, and all other aspects of the resources that we offer under one roof. So in summary, why Landscapes Unlimited? Part of what I just mentioned is you're gaining the intellectual property of the finest team of professionals in their respective disciplines in all areas. That's what you're investing in by partnering with Landscapes Unlimited. Our combined business activities generate roughly $150 million in sales. That's a little bit unique in the industry in that not many other companies can be small like our management company is on a national level. Maybe the largest management company is 200 properties and we're at just under 50, so we're able to leverage the resources that a $150 million a year company has while keeping a personalized approach. And finally, we were successful for the city of Sioux Falls with our construction activity at Elmwood, and we'd like to have the opportunity to be successful again in the delivery of your golf management services. We have a number of case studies that will show that we are good at what we do, and we'd love to have the opportunity to do it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tom.
Now we'd like to have Greg Greenfield come up with Greenfield and Rodert to talk through some of the contract terms. Greg has assisted Karen Leonard in the drafting of this agreement.
Thank you. Welcome, Greg.
Good afternoon. Well, what I want to talk about is that we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to the Gulf management contract. We've operated with Dakota under a management contract, management services agreement. And instead of getting into the specifics of the contract, I want to talk about structure. And if we want to go specific, I'm more than happy to go specific, but it's a good model. It's a good structure. There's some difficulties with leases having to do with course conditions and set fees and not incentivizing the person that's performing the services as you go forward. And like I said, we didn't reinvent the wheel, and so the template for this agreement that you have in front of you is the SMG Management Services Agreement. And we've also looked at a similar agreement with the Pavilion. The current agreement with Dakota is a management services agreement. I guess at the beginning, that's the selection that we made, and that's where we went with the contract. As far as the term, it's a 5-year term with an option at the city's sole discretion whether or not to renew for an additional 5 years. There was a question today at the Parks Board, well, what happens after 10 years? And the answer is that the contract expires by its term after 10 years, and whether or not the city goes out for a request for proposal is certainly one of the options that's available at that point in time. But just so you know, it's a 5-year contract with a 5-year option to renew at the city's sole discretion. It's an independent contractor arrangement. It's the same arrangement with SMG, the same arrangement with Dakota, the same arrangement at the Pavilion. And as Tracy will tell you when he comes up in a couple of minutes, the idea is to incentivize the person that's providing the management services, so it's a win-win both for the city and for the management company. And as I'll get into later, the fact that it's an independent contractor arrangement doesn't mean that the city doesn't retain quite a bit of control under the agreement. The compensation is an annual base fee of $75,000. And there's also, after the first year, a 3% increase. And then there's an incentive fee of 11% of any positive adjusted operating income. If you've looked at the contract, each of those terms have a specific meaning, which we spent quite a bit of time in negotiations deciding exactly what those terms mean as far as operating expense and operating revenue. And the last thing I want to point out is that the Gulf rates will be approved by the Parks and Recreations Board, just as they've been done, or just as been done in the past. We are retaining control with our customers, the people that like the Gulf in the city of Sioux Falls. If you ask me what I think overall about this contract, I think it's a good agreement. I think it's a tested agreement, and I think there are all kinds of protections for the city of Sioux Falls moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greenfield. Director Turback.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Greg. I do want to touch on a few more of the financial related terms of the agreement. Greg covered the compensation fee and kind of how that is structured. He did also mention that this is not a reinvented wheel. The structure of the agreement as it relates to the finances is really very, very similar in a lot of ways modeled after the city's agreement with SMG with their management agreement of our entertainment venues. And one of the key components of that agreement, and this one as well, is the concept of an operating account. And in the case of the golf course contract, LMC will be collecting all of the revenues that are generated from the operation of the courses. Any of that direct revenue is going to be collected by them and deposited into an operating account under their management and control. In turn, LMC will be responsible to pay from that operating account all the day-to-day expenses incurred in operating the golf courses, and all capital expenditures will be paid from that operating account. Capital expenditures might include things like equipment purchases or lease payments in the case of leased equipment, and it may also include some facility improvements if some are made during the term of this agreement. There are also other funds that will flow into this operating account that really don't derive from the operation of the golf course, one being the lease agreement with the hotel that will be opening soon, that ground lease. It actually is situated on the Elmwood Golf Course. So the revenues, and that's been the intention all along from the time that lease was entered into, that the revenues from that will support the costs of operating the golf courses and improvements. There are some non-operating expenditures that will also be paid out of the operating account. The biggest and most noteworthy is the repayment to the airport authority. There were certain costs associated with the renovation at Elmwood that were not covered by the airport, the grants and their funding that the city is obligated to reimburse, and so those dollars are, we've got a couple years of payments yet to be made. So those will be flowing out of this operating account as well. It's important to understand, I think, that at the end of the day, if revenues that are generated from the course and those non-operating revenues aren't sufficient to cover all the cost of the day-to-day operations or purchasing equipment or paying those lease payments, that the bottom line will be the city's responsibility. So if there is a funding shortfall in any given year, that will be the city's responsibility, just as it has been in past years. Of course, Greg touched on the incentive fee, and certainly the expectation is that the courses will in the future be operating in the black, and so that there will be a true win-win situation with that incentive fee and the city essentially taking 89% of that adjusted operating income and the 11% shared then with LMC. Another important aspect that I want to touch on under the agreement that relates to some of the financial provisions has to do with the ownership of assets. There are really kind of two buckets of assets. One is the golf facilities, which is the land, the clubhouse improvements, and some of the other course improvements. Those are owned by the city, and they will continue to be owned by the city. There's no change in that status of those golf facilities. It's termed under the agreement. So the city will continue to own those assets. As it relates to the equipment necessary to operate the courses, the materials and supplies, the seed, the fertilizer, the toilet paper in the restrooms, everything that it takes to operate the facility, any sort of asset, including funds in the operating account, will, throughout the term of the agreement, be owned by LMC. At the termination of the agreement, then any assets will revert to the city. So any money in the operating account reverts to the city. Any equipment that is held by LMC at the end of the term will revert to the city. So at the end of the day, that's an important difference from where we have been, where the management company in the past has owned all of that equipment. So as Dakota Golf's contract terminates at the end of the year, all the golf course maintenance equipment, the clubhouse equipment, all the FF&E in the clubhouse is owned by Dakota Golf. And so the city will be significantly changing their approach so that at the end of this term, we will have all the assets really necessary to move forward, either with a new management company, with city forces, whatever. It will really open up a lot of other possibilities and allow the city some flexibility down the road. It's important to understand, too, that LMC is responsible to purchase those capital assets. So if it's equipment that needs to be purchased to run the courses, that is purchased by LMC initially. Certainly it will take some city funds to fund some of the acquisitions. Some of that will be supported by some of those operating revenues that will be generated. But it's clear that at least initially some of those capital expenditures will be funded by the city. Now, it's not expected that we'll have to ask for any additional budget authority from the council. Certainly we expect to live within the budget as it's been established. Some kind of very basic provisions within the agreement have to do with the annual operating budget and capital plan. LMC will submit a recommended budget each year, kind of in line with the city's timeline for developing our own city budget each year, as well as a capital program consistent with our process that we go through each year in updating our capital program. A full set of reports will be provided to the city each month, maintaining accountability for the assets and the inflows and outflows from the operating accounts. So that will be very upfront and accountable. And the last financial related aspect of the agreement I'll mention is the annual independent audit. As you see in most, if not all, of our contracts where we have city facilities involved or being run or managed by someone else, this contract as well has a requirement for an annual independent audit following the end of each year. In addition, the city can also conduct audits at other times if for some reason it's deemed appropriate to do so. We've got that authority and right under the agreement. To conclude my part of it, I just convey that I'm optimistic that the city's courses will get back to operating in the black. There certainly are no guarantees. There rarely are, I guess, in this kind of a venture. But as Tom Everett mentioned, the food and beverage opportunities, I think, are significant. The merchandising opportunities and some of the purchasing power that they bring to the table will certainly tip the scales, from my perspective anyway, tip the scales in the favor of the city in terms of operating in the black. It's not going to happen overnight, but I believe this partnership with LMC does give the city the best shot at providing strong financial results in the future. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. This is a 5-year agreement, but certainly my expectation is that we will see that happen during this term. With that, I'll turn the microphone back over to Don, and he can conclude the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. I just wanted to close a little bit by talking about some of the major investments that we've developed at our city courses with the renovations and the cooperative relationship we had with the FAA. We have renovated all 27 holes of golf. Essentially, we have a new golf course out at Elmwood Golf Course. We have a 5-hole junior course that's brand new. We've got new driving range and practice facilities. We have new maintenance facilities at Elmwood. And then this year we also have another project to improve the parking lot, the main entrance drive, and also add some signage towards the end of the season this year, which will be essentially almost the entire complex at Elmwood has been renovated with the exception of the clubhouse after this project in 2018. As you know, we also have a new clubhouse at Prairie Green, and as a result of that, we also built a new practice green and putting green for folks at Prairie Green, and then we also significantly upgraded the clubhouse at Keene Park as a result of the relocation of the former Prairie Green clubhouse. So we're really in good shape as it relates to the infrastructure out there. The other thing that we're really looking forward to as well is, this will be the first year in 2018 coming up that we've not been under renovation going back to the year 2012. So over those years, we've been under construction in some way, shape, or form, and to actually have a full year with all 54 holes of golf available to us, certainly exciting. We're excited about our partnership with Elmwood Hospitality, Inc. The Crooked Pine Ale House is open. If you haven't been there, I'd encourage you to stop by. It's great food. And that's going to be just another bonus for the Elmwood complex. The Holiday Inn and Suites is opening soon as well. And then the other thing, because of it's being located at Elmwood Golf Course, we've got the partnership with the First Tee of South Dakota, the SDGA, and the Hall of Fame being located within the Holiday Inn. And then just finally, as some of you may be aware, Elmwood will host the South Dakota State Amateur Men's and Women's Championships, which is, I think, a great testament to the course conditioning and the improvements that were made as part of the renovations. We're excited, as Tracy mentioned, about partnering with Landscapes Management Company. We're really hoping that they'll do a bang-up job, and are confident they'll do a bang-up job of providing exceptional golf experiences. We really feel like they have a comprehensive approach to managing golf courses. They have a track record of maintaining great course conditions, really focused on engaging customers and providing top-notch customer services that Tom had alluded to. And then they have a reputation of achieving great results with their other municipal clients. So with that, our team would be happy to answer questions.
Very good. Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions of the Director? All right. Councilor Erpenbach.
Thank you. Thank you all for your reporting as well. I wanted to start by thanking Tom Janza for being here as well. For 23 years of exceptional service to our community. I appreciate the work that you've done. And I'm grateful to the new management for acknowledging the quality of the courses that you're taking over. I'd like you to talk then in more detail, Don, either one of you, about how that transition is going to happen in the next several months. Who are the people are there people that are coming from Dakota Golf that are going to be part of the new situation? How many of those folks, and how's that going to work going forward?
Thank you for that question, Councilor Erpenbach. I guess I would just describe the transition commencing day one. I believe the contract is proposed to start January 12th. We would be on the ground, boots on the ground, with our Human Resources Department and our operations managers. And as I discussed, it was our objective to bring the Dakota Golf management team on board. Of course, we're going to need to get to know one another, and you know, we may have a little bit of a different way of doing things, and I would anticipate that those team members would jump on board. And I guess we maybe have to do things a little bit differently, otherwise maybe we shouldn't expect different results. So we would, as I mentioned, be on board January 12th. The employees would be Landscapes Management Company employees, and that commences the relationship off and running right there.
Great, thank you. My other question, Mr. Chair, would be for Director Turbach, if I could. Tracy, can you talk a little bit more about those assets that belong to Dakota Golf at this time? Mm-hmm. You said some city dollars will be needed to make those purchases so that they become city assets. Can you talk about how much you think that's going to be? What are we talking about? Are we talking about, you know, golf carts or mowers, or what kinds of things are we talking about, and how much money are we talking about?
Yeah, it will involve the course maintenance equipment that are a lot of the things that you described, the mowers and trimmers and you know, rakes and those types of things. Typically, I think most courses, certainly in the past year, most of the carts have been leased, so I think it will ultimately be a combination of LMC purchasing some equipment and also leasing other equipment. I think the makeup of that and the mix will kind of have to unfold as they go along to determine how all that works out. As it relates to the existing equipment, because it's currently owned by Dakota Golf, you know, that is certainly one option available to LMC, is to acquire some or all or none of Dakota Golf's, whatever makes the most business sense for how they intend to do business going forward. There have been some discussions initially that have occurred with Dakota Golf to try to identify what makes the most sense, what can the city afford to fund, because we will be funding that operating account that LMC will be utilizing to make those initial purchases. So there are some discussions yet to work out in terms of what can we reach a meeting of the minds on, where, you know, there so far is a difference of opinion about the value of the equipment, and that's something that will have to be resolved as we go. The city isn't, the two aren't really joined at the hip per se. The agreement can certainly be addressed separately from the ultimate disposition of the equipment. That's really, I think, one of the very first jobs. Tom mentioned putting the budget together is one. I think figuring out the path forward on equipment, so that come springtime when we're ready to need to start maintaining the course and opening the clubhouses, that things are really ready to roll. But the dollar amount involved, I mean, we expect it's really hard to put a first year dollar estimate on because we don't know necessarily what the shakeout will be in terms of how much will be purchased versus how much is leased. If it's leased, clearly those costs are spread out over several years. We expect the ultimate, the projections for the year-end balance in the kind of the comparable account that Dakota Golf is managing to be somewhere in the range of $250,000 to $300,000 at the end of this year. So those dollars will roll into this operating account and will be the initial balance that Landscapes has to work with in terms of making some of those initial decisions. We also have dollars in the 2017 budget, as you folks know, to subsidize the shortfall in the operations of the golf course. Those dollars are available. And then we've got, I think, $100,000 in the budget for 2018 in the parks budget to help shore up whatever costs are incurred. So I think we're in very good shape. I'm confident, regardless of how the equipment discussion goes and how that all shakes out at the end of the day, I'm confident that based on our discussions with Landscapes Unlimited and the options that are available to outfit the courses with everything that is really needed, I'm confident that we can move forward without coming back to you folks and asking for more money.
Okay. If I might, just one comment. It's kind of a sucker punch for us to talk about the number of years that Elmwood in particular has been under renovations, and now I'm missing that it's 2012 to 2017, and then to continue to talk about how Dakota Golf wasn't operating in the black is it's a sucker punch. And so let's be real. That these are great golf courses with great programming, and I'm excited to see what the future is about, but I would just ask that we be careful about how we speak about our friends and neighbors who have been running this for as long as they have, that this is one of those things that we had to make those changes to that course. It cost us all dearly, and we need to acknowledge that publicly, so thank you.
Hey, Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you. I've got a couple of tracks I want to go down, so I'll just do one, and then I'm just going to defer. The first is, and it sounds like I may have heard the answer at least at the end of the year, the balance of this operating account, what that was?
In the current management account, are you asking? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course that remains to be seen yet because the Dakota Golf is still utilizing that account, but their latest projections put it at between $250,000 and $300,000. Okay,
and I may be misinformed, but I was under the impression that we still owed Dakota Golf for a capital project that they had done, that we were paying them back for a clubhouse or something like that? Is that
whatever amounts are due will be extinguished when the contract expires, or
that will be paid in full.
Make a final accounting of the 2017. Yep.
How much is left on the airport, and where does that money come from?
There are two payments of about $170,000 that remain. And again, those dollars have come from the management account, which is kind of the cousin of what this operating account will be for the new management company going forward.
Okay, and then the last one for this round. Still trying to be really clear on who's buying equipment and with whose money. So on day one, regardless of who we buy the equipment from, who mechanically is writing the check and with whose money?
The city will be funding that need initially. So it will be city dollars that get deposited either from the account that's being closed under Dakota Golf or additional funds that the city will put in there. And then those become landscape funds to manage in terms of purchasing or leasing equipment.
So then ongoing during the 5 years and possibly a renewal, they need to buy a new lawnmower. They make the purchase, but out of our account.
Out of the operating account that they're managing. And again, all the revenues from the courses are going in there, so the indications are that will become more and more self-supporting, of course, as we go. We certainly expect that not to happen in the first year because there will be a significantly greater need to equip the course because we're starting from zero essentially. Once that's done, then I think in year 2019 and forward, I think we'll see much better results on a cash flow basis.
So the advantage going forward is we own the equipment, so that at the end of the contract, we own it. Now, under the previous contract, it sounds like, I don't know what you want to call it, management company, whatever you wish to refer to them as, they buy and own the equipment, is that correct?
Dakota Golf has purchased and owned the equipment. The lease payments, and it's kind of a hybrid agreement, I guess. It's not a pure management agreement, but it probably looks more like a management agreement than anything else. The lease payments that they've made on equipment are an expense that's reported then to the city, and the city covers essentially the bottom line, regardless of the reasons behind it. It has on paper lost money, and in reality has lost money. So those costs, in effect, are reimbursed by the city to Dakota Golf. And in a less direct way, any purchases are as well, because those are assets that are depreciated, that reflect as an expense on those reports that come to the city. And at the end of the year, if that depreciation expense results in a larger loss than you would have without it, then the city reimburses that depreciation expense. I know it gets kind of in the weeds and confusing, but that's my best stab at explaining it.
Thanks.
Okay?
Councilor Rolfe.
I guess the bottom line is it's not changing a whole lot in terms of the net effect from what the city is really going to be required to fund. We have been funding the lease payments through those monthly reports, and as that loss changes, bottom line difference changes over the course of the year, the city reimburses those losses. So okay.
If you stay up there.
Councilor Rolfe.
Thank you. Director, we used to have, or are we still going to have a capital fund? Because I know that at one time with Dakota Golf Management, there was a capital fund, some certain amount of money from all the fees or whatever went into a capital fund so that there was money to, that's how we did the new clubhouse and things like that. Is that still going to be in effect?
There is not, or has not been under the current agreement, a capital fund. I think that predates the current agreement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, at this point, there's no provision for any sort of special fund to accumulate dollars. I think if we get to the point where we are generating extra dollars after all the operating costs and equipment leases and equipment payments are paid for, if we're still generating positive income, then I think that's something that in the future can be discussed as to how to make the best use of those dollars.
Okay. One of my questions was answered. We still owe 2 payments of $170,000 to the airport authority.
Right.
Why? I guess my thinking was, or what I thought was that that most of those, or all the costs associated with the changes out at Elmwood, were picked up by the airport authority because they forced the change on us.
Well, you're certainly right that most all of those costs were, but not all. There were some additional, and Don can probably tell you more specifically, but there were some additional improvements that did not fall within the eligibility criteria of the funding that they had, the federal funding.
Okay.
So that, and I think at the end of the day, it amounts to around $500,000 of city-funded improvements out there.
Okay. I suppose things
Out
like
of
moving the
$6 million something. But
yeah, moving that building, that shop building, or whatever, or stuff like that. You want to, Don?
Yeah, as part of the environmental assessment that took place as part of the whole analysis of what should get renovated and how much should get renovated, there were some ineligible costs that we felt like we needed to make as part of the overall improvements. For example, there were some portions of the course that weren't being impacted directly by those improvements in the expansion of the runway safety area, but we didn't want to renovate 85 or 90% of the course and have 10% of the course not renovated at the same time. And so it's that additional that was ineligible that we are funding.
Okay. Tom, could I visit with you for a second, if it's okay, if I may continue?
One more? Yep, go ahead.
in the, on the compensation, we're going to give you $75,000 a year, guaranteed basically, and then you're going to make money off of the 11%. Is what it amounts to. Am I right?
That's the idea.
What are you going to do to bring in, can you give us an idea of is it going to be merchandise, lessons when the pros give their lessons to me, which don't help most of the time, but they should. Tom, you've never given me a lesson. So anyway.
Councilor Rolfing, no, it's not. Typically, those instructional fees go back to the instructors, but our kind of platform, if you will, was based around our marketing and technology. We utilize a customized CRM software program that helps us manage our sales effort. As I mentioned, we have to go out and get the business. We're going to employ our suite of services relative to our point of sale, to our electronic tea times, online tea times, and just a overall digital marketing strategy. We're not recommending that we come in here and buy a bunch of ads and TV and newspaper. It's mostly digital these days, and then just out of the box type programming alternatives as well. You know, the idea here is to create a valuable asset for the city outside of the 12 to 15% of the population that plays golf. We'd love to find opportunities to engage a larger share of your constituency. I mentioned at the park board meeting earlier today that we had a country music concert at our municipal property in Laredo, Texas last week. Just those types of programming opportunities that pull people in, and you know, Councilor Erpenbach made a very good point. Mr. Jantz is a fine professional, and he's got a good team of professionals, but I feel like we can come in and take all of the good things that he has done and utilize our best practices to the benefit of the city in that way. So.
Good, thank you. I got one other thing I just got a note, or you want me to pass on
If
that?
you could,
I'll
we'll
wait
come
with
back.
that.
We'll come back to you. Thank you,
Fine.
Councilor. Councilor Staley.
We've been talking about Tom Jamsma. I was at the park board meeting today, and Tom, would you be willing to come up and just give us a little summary of what you were talking about? We're talking about the equipment. I was not aware of this, but I think it would be good if we all heard it from you. I have two things I'd like, after he's done, I have one more thing to say.
Okay, well, I certainly will take a stab at it here. Yeah, the park board meeting was today. Everything that has been up there with respect to LU is absolutely true. We obviously disappointed we didn't get the deal, but we've been committed since the day of the announcement to be a team player. We've facilitated the transition in every way that we can. We look forward and have looked forward to this new regime. We're not contesting the validity of the process or the outcome, but that was all contingent upon a couple of things, and Tom addressed one of them. And to your question, the promise to keep all of Dakota Golf, to sell this approach to the city. What did that actually mean, you know, to us? And that question, I think, has been answered, at least to our satisfaction at the moment. We understand that LU can't, you know, offer a employment contract to me at this point, or my people, but they've just been very sincere in their desire to keep us. We feel validated to that extent. And the other issue, and I've been very upfront with both the parties since the beginning, because this is such a drastic change in the way the city and the contractor deal with the equipment purchases, whereas that was always our responsibility. The city always just got their 20%, $500,000 a year before the Elmwood renovation to just do stuff on the golf course project-wise, or pay off clubhouses or whatever they wanted to do. It was always our responsibility solely to take over and fund all of the capital equipment purchases, and as such, we do own them. And Obviously, we didn't know what kind of agreement was going to come, going to end up with, but we always figured if it wasn't us, whoever was coming in would certainly want to consider buying our equipment. It's a turnkey operation. It's certainly, we've extended the life of some equipment, there's no doubt, but that's been to everybody's benefit to hold costs down in the process. So everything that's at the golf courses, that maintained them impeccably. Rex, you played, anybody who's played at the golf courses, the guys who played from the Country Club of Sioux Falls at the end of the year, there's nothing that's being done on the golf courses that is substandard because of that. So we've got equipment, and it's not just big pieces of equipment. It's, as Tracy, bare walls, I guess, is about as close as I could come to a determination. It's pretty much, if we don't come to an agreement to buy our stuff, then the city has to start from scratch. And our contention is that it'd be a better deal for the city to buy our stuff. And we're not close enough right now to make me comfortable to be in support of, the agreement to a certain extent, at least my participation in the agreement. So my whole deal is that I think that should be decided before the agreement is voted on by the council. I think that number of what the city's cost to get back in the business of equipping 3 golf courses, 54 holes of golf at 3 different facilities is not a small number, whether it's mine or whether it's then. And so it seemed to me that it's putting the cart ahead of the horse to a certain extent, that I would think that you guys would want to know, if it's not us, what the other option is. So that's that's why I'm kind of holding back at the moment my enthusiasm, because it is 23 years as Dakota Golf and 30 years of total service at the golf course. It's what I have. It's what Dakota Golf is. It's what we did for the city. The city never had to buy anything or have any risk for up until the Elmwood renovation, which is not our fault, and ended up fantastic.
Councilor Staley, do you have another answer?
So, that's my deal. That was my speech to the park board, was that I need that answer before the end of the week so that I can make a decision as to whether I'm going to participate with LU or not.
Thank you, Tom. Councilor Staley, continue.
Yes, thank you, Tom. Well, and I just need to make a statement, and I know that my colleagues are not supporting me in this, but I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, and I will say it again. I have problems with the RFP process in this situation and in other situations. And the manager and I had a conversation after the park board meeting today, and he acknowledged, he understood what I'm saying. It's nothing against his company. It's a fine company. The Argus did a great review for you. But we are, at the end of the day, we are all being asked to sign off on a contract. I take it personally. I take it very seriously. And we are being told, this is the selection, this is the winner, trust us, it rises above all the other applicants. And I've been saying over and over again, let me see the other applicants before I make a decision. And I've said, take us into executive session and redact all the names, all the proprietary information. I'm going to call this week other municipalities, and I'm going to ask them how they handle this situation. Because I think we could easily come into an executive session and Scott Rust could make a pro and a con list, like he told me he did for the RFP group, and we could look at it for ourselves and say, this, this, and this, and then I can support this company wholeheartedly. But right now I'm taking another group's word for it. It's a big thing for our community, as are all these decisions that we make. And I think it really is a indicator of the transparency that we have happening here. And maybe state law, I'm going to find out as I research this, that Teresa, by golly, you got to take what they say and just trust them, and that's it. And then our public will know that as well. But right now I'm really having a problem with this process. And again, I appreciate the council's kind words towards Dakota Golf, because it's been a real hard feeling, in our community. We got contacted by many golfers in the midst of this. Some wanted Great Life and Dakota Golf, and you want to do the best thing for everybody. But if you don't have all the information, it's really hard to say we're supporting the best decision. So just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Erickson?
Thank you. Tracy Turback, can I ask you a few questions? And one Karen may need to answer, but I'm certain you can as well. My first question is in regards to the other proposals. What prohibits the other people that proposed? It's my understanding there was 3, is that correct? 3 total that proposed?
There were 5 proposals.
5,
received.
okay. Of the 5, we have the one in front of us. What stops the other 4 from submitting those proposals to the council?
We can't prevent
Not
them.
you, but the other people.
We can't prevent them from releasing that information. If they choose to do that, they could release it to anybody they want.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear that if they so choose to do that, then they can certainly send that on to the council for that. But I understand that the way that the state law is written with the RFP process, that those are bound by confidentiality, and so I respect that process through the state law. So thank you for answering that. My other question had many of them, and as we've gone through, a lot of them already answered. The annual independent audit that was on the financial contract terms, how will that be determined, who that independent person will be? I'm assuming that the audit group, Kim and her group, will potentially add something on the list as they've moved through this, but who will that be, or is it undetermined at this time?
It can be somebody different, a different CPA firm each year. I guess it has not yet been determined. If I remember correctly, and maybe Greg will correct me if I do get it wrong, but I believe the provision in the agreement is that LMC selects with the city's approval.
Okay.
So it's essentially a joint decision.
Okay, and so then I just have some, I know we've kind of hammered on the equipment a little bit, and that's very different than the last contract. And so I just want to ask a couple of questions on that. Do you have an estimate, or maybe this is for Tom, an estimate of what you need to equip these 3 golf courses? It's a loaded question, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm far from a golf course equipment expert. So we have been relying a lot on research that our procurement team has done, as well as advice provided by LMC in terms of, and ultimately the decision as to what will be needed is really up to our management company to tell us what does it take. I think it's important to understand, though, that it's not simply a matter of buying the equipment from Dakota Golf or going out and buying all new equipment. There are a lot of options in between. So when we talk about how expensive it could be, absolutely it could be incredibly expensive, but it doesn't have to be. And I think those are the finer decisions that really take an expert at running golf courses to work through. That's not something that I can tell you, or Don probably doesn't claim to be an expert either, would be my guess. But
I just didn't know if we had a ballpark range of saying, look, we really need $300,000 to get us on our feet, or our goal is 200. I didn't know if there was a ballpark. Then my other question, my final question, was in regards to if there's approval that comes along with that equipment. So they need to purchase that. I know that we do transfers all the time, and that's a notice on our council agendas. But is that something that needs to be approved in the future? How does that look since this is different?
the approval of the purchase agreements, is that what you're asking
Right,
about?
so if they need a new lawnmower, and
Right,
that new lawnmower is 10 grand or
Got it, yep.
whatever, I have no idea.
Under the agreement, that would be a decision that could be made by LMC, as long as it's provided for within the budget that's been approved by the city for the operating account. Also, if there are any leases, I think those specifically have to be agreed to by the city before they could go out and lease equipment, new carts or something like that. So the city does have the ability to exercise control over purchases or lease, obligations, significant obligations that might be incurred going forward. Right. So it's really got to be a partnership and collaborative process as to what makes the most sense, what are the priorities, and what can we afford.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here and answering the questions. I know there's others that have more questions too, so thank you.
Okay, Councilor Selberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, a couple of my questions have already been asked. I guess I'd just maybe make a statement or two as being a part of this program. Tom, I'm happy to see you here today. Thank you, and thank you for getting up and speaking with candor on everything. I know that there's a great deal of respect for your service in the past, and we're excited. Hopefully you're going to be a part of the future. I know as part of our group, that was everybody on the group really felt strongly that one of the biggest perks or parts of this deal was keeping you and your group hopefully involved and using that expertise, but then tying in what, as was put before, Landscapes Unlimited could come in. If that can team up, that was where we really thought we had something here. So I hope we do, and I just wanted to reiterate there's a great deal of respect for your service to the city. It was a constant point of subject as we talked about this. I can also say on the RFP part, all the companies that put a bid in were terrific. I mean, again, it was my first time doing this process, and you kind of looked at the stack of books in every which way, and you looked at the accomplishments, and you're like, wow, and you just kind of plugged away hour after hour, meeting after meeting, trying to come to your conclusions. And that's where the system kind of walks you through and puts you through the different avenues of what's important, and you come out with points to this or whatever. But I believe everybody that went through the whole process came to this result. And when you just look at Landscapes Unlimited, I mean, take a look at the one page. You talk about who they've done business with. That's the who's who of golf right there. Bay Hill, Colonial, Firestone, Oak Hill, PGA National, Pinehurst. You look over at business services, what are there? 30, 40 points there. I mean, they're just an outstanding group, and the rest that put a bid in were as well. But I just wanted to add my little 2 cents worth as far as being a pretty heavy part of this, and I'm not afraid to say that because I thought it was a good process, that I think we're on the right track. I think they will do a good job. I'm confident in that. So anyway, thanks for being here. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, thank you. Before I go back to Councilor Rolfe and Councilor Starr, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess maybe my question's for Director Turbeck to start with. I'm watching this that we're running an enterprise with the 3 golf courses. Why aren't we looking at setting this up as an enterprise fund, just like we do public parking or the water, sewer, and the rest, that this should stand for itself, that it should be user fees of people who use the system and things. So it just seems like a perfect opportunity to set this up as an enterprise fund.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think some communities probably do handle their municipal golf courses as enterprises. I can't tell you why the decision was made, or even when, many years ago, to account for the golf courses and put the golf courses under the Parks and Recreation Department as they are today. So I guess I don't know the history of that. I do know that more and more golf courses around the country are struggling financially. So it is I would expect in many cases becoming more and more difficult to have the revenue support the cost of operating golf courses. I mean, there are courses around the country that are going out of business, and we certainly hope and don't expect that to be the case here, but something to look at in the future, perhaps. I don't know. I mean, we can certainly anticipate and manage it so that it becomes self-supporting, at least with that goal in mind, regardless of whether or not it's set up as an enterprise on the city's books. So I think the ultimate goal can be achieved.
When we did the 2018 budget, what are we projecting for a loss or a gain at the 3 courses for the 2018 budget cycle?
Yeah, for 2018, I believe we put $100,000 in the parks budget to cover any shortfall for 2018.
And in 17, the golf courses are going to be in that 400,000 range? Is that the loss?
The budget amount was 325. So yeah, it remains to be seen yet where the year ends, of course. But
probably not a lot between now and the end of the year, but the way
not a lot of revenue, but I mean certainly the expenses continue to be incurred.
Okay. Thank you. That gets me started.
Okay, Councilor Rolfe, and then we'll come back to Councilor Neitzer.
Just a couple of things. Tracy, if I could have Tom come back up. Tom, wanted to see if I could get a couple of perks here. First, When you get started, I need to talk to you about placement or replacement of a couple of sand traps out there at Prairie, so I don't use them so much.
I can walk to the neighboring office and talk to the people that can help
I
you
would
with
be
that.
happy to. And then secondly, this, you know, as Councilor Selberg said, this is the who's who of golf. How many of these can you get us on?
Well,
I'm kidding you. I'm just probably
we'll
putting
do
you
our
on the spot.
best. I'll put it that way.
That'll be, that's very impressive. And I'd like to also say thank you to Tom for the service that he's done over the last 30 years. It's been fun to watch, and even with the old man back in the day. And so it's been a good run. I just wanted to comment on because I think it needs to be said, on Councilor Staley. I'd suggest that she tried to change the state RFP laws. If she's not happy with the way things are going, because every time she brings that up, it says there's something sinister going on here. And this is state law. We follow state law. It's been set up for specific reasons. So I would just encourage her to do some research and then try and get us past the changes that she'd like to see done, passed on a state basis, so that everyone has to do it the way, you know, if it's better her way, that's fine. If not, that's okay too.
Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this would be for. So let's say that we didn't renew this, or we didn't approve this, or we deferred it, and we got past January 1st. What happens? I mean, does Dakota Golf keep running it, or does nobody run? Is nobody managing it? What? Just hypothetically, if it had to be deferred for some reason.
Well, we certainly hope that doesn't happen, but if it doesn't materialize, we'll definitely have to have a plan B in place. One of the things we're contemplating is we're trying to make sure that it's a seamless transition between the Dakota Golf employees and the landscape management transfer over to their system. And so we have a pretty good plan in place for that, how that would happen. If it gets deferred or it doesn't happen at all, we would have to create a different plan for how we would attack that. But certainly our hope is that we proceed forward.
Okay. Okay. As far as the asset purchase, regardless of who you buy it from, whether it's the previous firm or it's on the open market, what if there's a delay in negotiating and coming to an agreement for a month? What happens during that month time frame? Do we just not have any equipment, or?
Well, it depends on if the delay is to March 1st or if it's a delay to May 1st. Obviously, those are critical time frames for maintenance of the courses. And so I think we've got ample time. As we've talked to landscapes management, they have plenty of resources. And then obviously we're still considering Tom's equipment that he has as well that's currently on site. So we don't anticipate any problems with that. And I think there are a variety of different outlets, and Tom Everett could probably expand upon his ability to get that equipment in short order.
Okay, I'm not a golf person, so there's not a whole lot you would need during January?
Yeah, correct.
I don't know what's all involved in the equipment, so you'd have a little time, I guess.
Yeah, really the primary thing that's going on now is just maintenance on the equipment and then just office work currently. So.
Okay, and my other question is for Tom Everett, actually. Just from the outside looking in, somebody who isn't a golfer, it seems like the two biggest challenges that I'm seeing that we're having is, first of all, the renovations, which are complete, but the other one, the other elephant in the room is...
The what?
What's that?
I'm sorry, what was not complete?
The renovations are complete.
Oh.
I'm sorry. That's the first challenge. That's complete, so that's out of the way. The other one seems to be the elephant in the room, which is this other company that has a membership deal where you can sign on and you have golf, but you get all this other stuff, and it's very affordable, and people may be moving over to that and trying that out. Have you dealt with something equivalent in other places that you've managed, where you've got maybe somebody come in with a really, the really kind of cheap $29 a month or whatever, or something that they can offer all these other things, and then what do you do to, stabilize memberships, what is your
Yeah.
sell that why should I stay with here versus go over to this guy?
Well, that's an excellent question, and the elephant in the room is the competitive nature of golf in this market, and we have to compete. They are certainly a viable competitor. However, I'm not sure that it's sustainable as their golf courses are don't have enough capacity to meet the demand of their membership. I don't believe. So we will have to we'll certainly have to develop a certain level of competing product, and we have some thoughts and ideas there. I'm not sure that I'm willing to speak or ready to speak in detail of that today, but we have to recognize them as a competitor and take the fight to them, so to speak.
But this is not the first time that you may have seen this sort of a challenge, so you would have ideas without going into specific proprietary ideas. I mean, I'm assuming you've dealt with this in other jurisdictions where you've had, a competitor who's maybe low cost. And I am hearing, I think there might be, maybe some issue with them getting a little busy, and maybe some people aren't necessarily happy with that, and maybe they're bouncing back because they're having to wait. But
yeah, Great Life is certainly a unique concept. They have pretty well taken over the Kansas City market. Okay. We're not operating in Kansas City as of today, so we don't compete with them directly. I know they have talked about coming into the Omaha market, but have not been able to get that done, over the course of the last few years. So, we definitely need to recognize them as a competitor and develop a competing product, and I think there's ways to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Staley?
Say, Tom, if you would just stay up there for clarification. We were talking about employees and overlap. They are going to be, you said today at the park board meeting, a 60-day, how did you say that, trial period?
All LMC employees are hired with a 60-day probationary period, yeah.
So what do these people do for their health insurance in that transition?
Yeah, very good question. There is a period between 12/31 when they're Dakota Golf employees to January 12th when they're LMC employees. Our objective all along has been to not have this become a burden on the staff. In other words, not have the opportunity for compensation over the course of those 11 days. So it was our recommendation to the city, and I believe agreed upon, to backdate the start date for these employees to January 1st. There is a little bit of a window there between the 1st and the 12th where health insurance could be a potential issue. We have, while we're not under contract and I can't commit to anything today, it would be our intention to, again, backdate the start of their participation in our health insurance programs to January 1st. Between the 1st and the 11th, if they have a doctor appointment, they will not have an insurance card to take to that. There is the opportunity, I believe, for them to participate in COBRA if there became a significant event over the course of those 11 days. And I guess we would want to talk to Tom and make sure that he recommends to his team to make sure all their prescriptions are up to date through the 31st and that sort of thing. So we just have to manage through it the best we can.
How many employees are we talking about?
I think there's roughly 20 full-time employees right now, maybe not quite that many. I think there were 14 or so at the employee meeting that we had last week.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Any other questions for any of the members? Councilor Neitzer?
One last one. Again, without talking about firms and nothing about the other proposals, let's just stick with the winner and what we have today. In a basic sense, what are the differences as far as the model? I mean, whether it's lease versus, it sounds like the last one wasn't a lease, it's kind of a quasi-management. What's the difference here, I guess is what I'm getting at. For example, in the old one, was there the incentive fees? Could we lose money? Were we not ever going to lose money? compared to this? I mean, I kind of have a grasp of this one, but under the old one, what's the kind of high level, if you can do that?
Well, I can certainly take a shot at the agreement before the renovations that we had with Dakota Golf Management. In that case, we received 20% of the gross revenues that were generated at the golf courses. And then what we essentially did is we allowed 10% of that 20 to be reinvested in the golf courses in various capital improvements over the course of the next year. And we would just have a 5-year capital plan like the city has. And then between Tom, our staff, the Golf Advisory Board, and the Park Board, they would authorize those improvements for the 3 different courses. When we went into the renovations phase, we essentially got to the point where we wanted to make them whole, so to speak, on their historic net income at the golf courses during the period of transition where, you know, obviously we didn't have the supply of holes that we had available prior to that. So that's where we're at today and finishing up in this year. And now we're talking about the new agreement as we've outlined with Landscapes as proposed.
If I understand it, you gave them some sort of a prorated amount of money to basically compensate them for the fact that outside of their control, they lost a certain number of holes. It was not of their doing, so it wasn't their performance. So that's where that injection came from in the last handful of years.
Essentially what we did is we looked back at their profitability as a company during that time that they were managing the courses prior to the renovations, and then we just essentially made them whole as a company for that historic performance of their company. And so we guaranteed them that income, and then obviously, as Tracy's pointed out, you know, we've covered the losses through the operations. Whatever the revenues that the courses didn't cover, we've covered through department support.
Well, we didn't pay a management fee. We just took a cut of the profit, essentially. Is that fair to say or not?
Of the sales, gross sales.
No.
$75,000 management fee, or it was just the.
Are you talking about the one with Landscapes now?
No, I'm still sticking with the Dakota Golf.
No, the historic guaranteed income for Dakota Golf is $43,000 over the period of time during the renovations.
Well, what about previous to the renovations? Just
they were not guaranteed a management fee. Everything after the 20%, that was theirs as a corporation. Whether they lost money or they made money, that was the arrangement that we had.
They held the risk of loss.
Correct.
Whereas here,
or the benefit of the gain as well. But we got the 20% off the top, and then they try to manage within that and make as much money as they could and still operate the courses.
is there so they have a very good reason to make more money because they get the 11%. Is there any downside risk for the other party?
They're guaranteed their $75,000 a year, but the upside is the 11%.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I do have, Don, whether it's you or Mr. Greenfield, I think we've had a lot of good questions, and I know that we've touched on the equipment matter. That was certainly something I had questions about. But just to verify, the annual base fee, since we were just touching on that, of $75,000, it's built in. There's a 3% increase per year over the length of the 5-year contract. Does that apply to the incentive fee of 11% of any positive adjusted operating income, or does that 11% remain steady throughout the 5 years?
I believe it remains steady. I don't believe that changes at all. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So then the other 89% above the operating costs would be city funding?
Correct.
Or city revenue?
Correct.
Very good. Okay. Like I've stated, very, very good discussion. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Councilor Selberg for participating in this RFP, as well as the other members too, especially the citizen members, because this was not an easy one for people to sit on. This is one that had a lot of emotion. Golfers tend to be emotional people. Sometimes that's indicated by the club that's around the tree. But this was certainly one of those, and it wasn't easy, especially once information was out that Councilor Selberg was on the RFP. And it does put them in a difficult position to make a a sound decision based on just the facts and not influenced by others from the outside. So thank the entire team on the RFP for doing their job.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're going to move right on, and we're going to keep, to a degree, Councilor Selberg busy here because we're going into our next topic, and our last topic is Superhero Citizen Recognition Program. And I would ask if you haven't had the opportunity to look at the spelling of superhero. I love it. It's a play off of our own Sioux Falls. But Councilor Selberg, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point in time.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wrote up a little statement that I'm going to make, and then what we'll do, if it's all right, is just we'll probably go into any questions and input in that from there. So, is that all right? And if it's okay if I give it from here?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd be nervous up front.
You're fine where you're at.
All right. Well, I've always been a fan of biographies and motivated by example, and it's been my experience that by seeing the works, deeds, and accomplishments of others, you can't help but push yourself to do better, to emulate those who are living by example and showing what's possible. Now, I'm not going to go all Tony Robbins on you here today, but I really do believe that we can use our platform to help in this regard. As community leaders, we have a responsibility to not just draft policy, legislate, and debate, but to also set an example and hopefully help to inspire whenever and wherever possible as well. That is the inspiration behind this program, to make a concerted effort to use the tools at this City Council's disposal to help find and promote positive people, programs, and headlines in Sioux Falls. Citizens are encouraged to keep an eye out for those going above and beyond and bring them out of the shadows. I'm sure a number of people, upon hearing about this program, will probably already have somebody in mind who's a perfect fit. We look forward to meeting them soon. It's my hope this program not only gives us a platform to promote the good in the city, but that it also steadily brings a new audience to what's going on in Sioux Falls and the opportunities that are out there for everyone to get involved that are interested. They may see a friend or family member become a recipient at an upcoming City Council meeting, or an upcoming City Link TV feature, or through another media outlet and say to themselves, I never knew she was involved in that. I never knew that opportunity existed. How do I get involved? Or even something like, hey, I never even knew City Council met on Tuesday nights. Maybe I'll show up sometime. I realize this isn't a revolutionary idea here. There are a number of organizations in the community that recognize outstanding citizens. But I believe we can help move this effort along at a greater speed and bring a megaphone to the effort. Organizations such as the Helpline Center have an outstanding program and are folks that were consulted with often on this project for their input. They will also be helping to promote the program as well as educate on opportunities for those who are ready to get involved and move forward. No, this isn't a new idea, but recognizing those who inspire and do what's right should always be in fashion. As a former president once said, the old ideas are new again because they are not old, they are timeless. Duty, sacrifice, commitment, and a patriotism that finds its expression in taking part and pitching in. I want to thank all of you who helped put this together. Your input was invaluable and very much appreciated. I look forward to getting after this and seeing where it leads. In a town of some 170,000 plus people, I believe there are endless examples of great people and inspirational stories out there. Let's go find them. So, that being said, I am here today exploring how to formally create this. I'm guessing it'll likely be a motion or a resolution, maybe at an upcoming City Council meeting. But I am open to any questions, suggestions, or anything that we can talk about as far as the program is concerned. So thank you for your time.
Okay, open it up for questions. And Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I've reviewed the information. I just want to thank you for your efforts of bringing this forward. It's positive. It's fun. I'm excited to meet some new people that have made an impact in the community that we all love so much. And so thanks for your efforts with this. I look forward to being a part of it more and promoting this as much as we can through media outlets as well as social media or however else we can get the message out. There are a lot of great people that live in this community that oftentimes go unrecognized, and they do the things that they do to not be recognized, But it's those times that when somebody else isn't looking, that we can recognize them, I think is the benefit and really accomplishes a great goal in our city council taking the initiative of this. So thanks for your efforts. I think it's very well thought out, and I look forward to whatever we need to do to move it along in an upcoming council meeting. Thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when I go to the Helpline yearly awards, I'm really blown away by what's going on in this community and people that are just are doing amazing things, and I'm humbled. And I think the nice thing about this is, right now especially, it's nice to have something positive where we can lift up rather than be tearing down, because we've been doing a lot of tearing down recently. So I applaud you for something positive that we can hopefully all get behind.
Councilor Rolfe.
I guess that's one of the things I wanted to say too, is that, it's so neat to see something positive when there's so much negative floating around. And I just really appreciate what you're doing. I do have one serious question, and that is there any cost to the city for this program, other than maybe printing up a certificate?
At this point, pretty much the award will be the certificate, and then we are going to have a plaque out in Carnegie here, which hopefully will be nice, and people will maybe enjoy getting their picture on that. They're award recipients. I don't know that we've narrowed that down, if it's nothing significant, but
I would not think it would be significant, but I just wanted to make sure that, something didn't happen that said, oh, well, now we got to have $100,000 for this, or $1,000 or something.
I think we'll be well under that budget.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it was on record. Thank you.
Any other questions? I too thank you, Councilor, for your efforts, because we're certainly not lacking for individuals in this wonderful community to recognize. There's acts of kindness taking place all the time. Just during the course hour and a half of this meeting, it would be hard to come up with a number of how many have taken place just since we've been meeting. And I know that there's other recognition programs, but what makes this different? This is the City of Sioux Falls, our City Council's recognition program. So I applaud you for that. That's great.
And I could maybe just mention to those that are watching that don't have the handout in front of them, the kind of the simple program to it all is you'll be able to nominate, citizens will nominate folks that they believe would be eligible for the award, and they can do that either by going to the siouxfalls.org. There'll be an easy to find link, and they can do it that way. They can pick up an application at Carnegie. What will happen is all of the applications will be gathered on the second Tuesday of the month and reviewed by a committee, and the decisions will be made, and then the recipients will receive it on every first council meeting. So that'll be another, like you say, bringing maybe a little bit of sunshine into the council meeting on the first ones anyway, and hearing some positive stories and seeing how that goes. So, like I said, I think hopefully it'll make a little bit of a difference. It'll get some people paying attention that maybe haven't before and get more involved, and that's the idea behind it, and I appreciate all your support.
Thank you. During these short days and long nights, we could use a little more sunshine. Okay. Well, that concludes our agenda for this afternoon. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.